In the late 1930s, during radio's golden age, Ann Woodward captivated the nation as the most beautiful girl in radio. But in 1955, her name was splashed across headlines for a far darker reason. An explosive scandal that would become known as the shooting of the century. So, what happened that fateful night? Was Anne innocent as she claimed, or was there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? The woman more widely known today as Ann Woodward was born as Angeline Lucille Crowell on the 12th of December 1915 in the town of Pittsburgh in Kansas. Her father was Jesse Crowell, a retired Army colonel who hailed originally from Detroit. He was a fairly modest man, and at this time worked as a streetcar conductor checking tickets in Pittsburgh. Her mother, Ethel Smiley Crowell, was a schoolteacher in the city and an exceptionally intelligent woman, having earned a master's degree from the University of Kansas before women even had the right to vote. Angeline, who simply became known as Anne in her younger years, had a fairly unremarkable middle-class childhood in Pittsburgh, but cracks soon appeared in her quiet but happy life. Her parents' marriage crumbled, ending in divorce, and both remarried. This was the most controversial event known about her younger years. Anne's life took its first turn when, after finishing high school, she set her sights on Kansas City, a journey of 150 kilometers north. There she enrolled at Kansas City Junior College. But Kansas City wasn't enough for a restless spirit like Anne. The city's rhythm didn't match hers, and after just 1 year, she abandoned her studies in 1937. With little more than determination and a suitcase, she set her sights on the glittering promise of New York City, a place where dreams were made or crushed. When Anne arrived in New York City, she rebranded herself as Ann Eden and quickly turned heads with her stunning looks, blonde hair, blue eyes, a presence that could stop anyone in their tracks. It wasn't long before she landed a job as a showgirl at Fifi's Monte Carlo, a fashionable new nightclub at 49 East 54th Street. The timing was perfect. America was experiencing a mini economic boom after the Great Depression, and glamour was back in style. At Fifi's, Anne became a magnet for attention, and one admirer in particular changed her life forever. John Robert Powers, the mastermind behind one of the top modeling agencies of the era, saw star potential in her. With his backing, Anne began to land modeling gigs and other high-profile opportunities, including a summer stint in Connecticut, performing with a stock company. But her big break came when she crossed paths with the legendary Noel Coward. Anne joined Coward's radio production Set to Music, a dazzling mix of songs, sketches and dialogue that had taken London by storm in the early 30s. Coward brought the show over to America, performing over 100 live Broadway shows, and Anne's role in the radio adaptation made her more famous by the day. In 1940, Anne's rising stardom was cemented when she was crowned the most beautiful girl in radio, a curious title for someone working in a medium where looks didn't matter. In her mid-20s, Anne had seemingly made it, living the dream in the city that never sleeps. Marriage and family life soon followed for Anne, but not before a whirlwind of intrigue and scandal. While working at Fifi's Monte Carlo, she crossed paths with William Woodward Jr., the heir to one of America's most powerful business dynasties. His great-uncle had been a key financier behind the monumental Panama Canal project, and his father, William Sr., was a towering figure, a banker, businessman, and celebrated horse trainer who owned the opulent Bel Air mansion in Maryland. But the story wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. William Jr. was barely out of his teens, 5 years younger than Anne when they began seeing each other in the early 1940s. Yet rumours spread that Anne's connection to the Woodwards had started with someone else, William Sr. himself. Gossip whispered through New York's high society suggested that Anne had been romantically linked to the elder Woodward, nearly 40 years her senior, before setting her sights on his son. Anne and William Jr.'s relationship was sporadic in its early days. With America's entry into World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, William enlisted in the United States Navy, leaving their romance to flicker intermittently. But love endured, and by March 1943, the couple was engaged. Just 2 weeks later, during William's brief shore leave, they exchanged vows. Tragedy struck though just 8 months into their marriage. William was aboard the USS Liscome Bay when it was torpedoed by the Japanese near the Gilbert Islands in the Pacific. The attack was devastating. Over 700 men lost their lives. Against all odds though, William was just one of the 272 survivors, emerging from the wreckage injured, but alive. His return home earned him a Purple Heart and a hero's welcome. By then the couple had started a family. Their first son, William Woodward III, was born in July 1944, followed by James Woodward early in 1947. Outwardly, they seemed the picture of post-war marital bliss, but beneath the surface, cracks in their seemingly perfect life began to show. The Woodward marriage, for all its glamour and privilege, harboured dark secrets that would ultimately lead to tragedy. After the war, William made a name for himself as a renowned thoroughbred horse trainer, while Anne basked in the luxury of their high society lifestyle. As mentioned, everyone believed they were happily married, but the reality was quite different. William's mother feared that Anne had married her son for his money, and her disapproval cast a long shadow over their union. As the years passed, the cracks deepened. Both Anne and William engaged in extramarital affairs, and were known to drink heavily. Over time, Anne also turned to prescription drugs, becoming a habitual user. So, what looked like a charmed life to outsiders was, in reality, a toxic combination of excess, infidelity, and unraveling control, a ticking time bomb in the gilded halls of high society that would soon explode. On the night of the 30th of October 1955, Anne and William attended a party that was hosted by Florence Tucker Baker, heiress to one of America's wealthiest banking families. Among the guests were none other than the former King Edward VIII, now Duke of Windsor, and his infamous wife, Wallis Simpson, a pair whose scandalous love story had rocked the British monarchy. But the night's glitter quickly gave way. Whispers of unidentified figures lurking near the Woodwards' Oyster Bay Cove estate on Long Island had been circulating. By the time the couple returned home, unease hung in the air. Allegedly on high alert for intruders, they carefully inspected their property, finding nothing amiss. Still, caution prevailed. The couple then retired for the night to the separate rooms that they slept in. The stage was set for a night that would become infamous in the annals of high society scandal. The events leading up to that fateful night are widely agreed upon, but the real controversy lies in what happened in the early hours of October 31st, 1955. Anne later claimed that she was startled awake by an unusual noise, something or someone moving on the roof of their home. Fear gripped her as she retrieved the loaded shotgun, which she had left in her room to guard against any potential intruder. She then went out into the hallway, where she saw a shadowy figure appearing to enter William's bedroom. Her gun was loaded with hunting buckshot, which in most circumstances would have wounded a human, but probably not have killed them. But what happened next would shock the nation. Police forensics later revealed that some of the buckshot had ricocheted off a wall and then struck the intruder directly in the temple, a fatal hit. But when Anne turned on the light to see what had happened, she wasn't staring at an intruder. She was staring at her husband, William, lying lifeless on the floor. Panicked and distraught, Anne called the police. When they arrived, they found her in tears, trembling over what she claimed was a tragic accident. But was it? As news broke, the story exploded across the headlines branded "The Shooting of the Century." So was it a terrible mistake, born of fear and confusion, or was there something more sinister behind the trigger? The question would grip the nation and tarnish Ann's life forever. The investigation into the shocking shooting was swift and intense. Ann Woodward was immediately arraigned to appear before a local grand jury, having confessed on the spot to shooting and killing her husband. But the real question loomed. Had she pulled the trigger intentionally? Her story seemed to check out, and it was strengthened further when a man by the name of Paul Worths was arrested for committing burglaries in the Long Island region and confessed to having attempted to break into Woodward's home on the night in question. He even admitted that he had been on the roof of the house and fled when he heard a gunshot inside. This seemed to completely vindicate Ann, and when the grand jury in Nassau County convened, it took them less than 30 minutes to decide Ann Woodward was innocent of any intentional crime. Ann was a free woman, but it seemed like New York high society had not gotten the memo. In the weeks that followed the shooting, a brutal campaign of character assassination commenced. Much of it was fueled by Ann's mother-in-law, who had always disliked her and perceived her as a gold digger. There were also a number of circumstantial issues which saw suspicion heaped on Ann. Her father-in-law had died 2 years earlier, and William Jr. had inherited extensive money and lands, meaning Ann had a lot to gain if her husband suddenly passed. There were also rumours that Ann and William's marriage was so bad at the time that a divorce was imminent. So, Ann had everything to lose if she didn't get a good divorce settlement, and many speculated that she had intentionally killed her husband and gotten away with it. These rumours grew louder and louder, and soon New York society turned its back on her. Once a fixture in high society, Ann was now a social pariah, shunned at every turn. Though she walked free and retained her wealth, in the court of public opinion, Ann Woodward wasn't a grieving widow, no. She was the woman who had masterminded the shooting of the century. Ann became something of a social recluse thereafter. She avoided the spotlight and tried to avoid courting any notoriety in the late 1950s and through the 1960s. Over time she did build back up a social circle, and people moved on. She might have believed that over the years, the story had largely been forgotten about. However, in 1975, 2 decades after the shooting, a fresh scandal arose. That year, the famed American author and social figure Truman Capote sold the rights to several chapters of a book he'd been working on for many years, entitled Answered Prayers to Esquire magazine. When the chapters were published, it became clear to New York high society that Capote had produced very thinly fictionalized tales about his female friends, the so-called Capote Swans, particularly in one chapter entitled La Cote Basque 1965. These were women like Gloria Vanderbilt and Happy Rockefeller, who hailed from some of America's richest and most powerful business dynasties. Though Ann and Capote barely knew each other, Capote had included a character named Ann Hopkins, who was clearly based on her, and discussed the killing of her husband back in 1955. In it, Ann was presented as having intentionally killed her husband in an effort to claim his substantial wealth for herself. Hence, 20 years after the shooting of the century, when it seemed the world had forgotten about the incident, the wound was ripped open for Ann, and tongues started wagging once again about how she might have murdered her husband in cold blood and gotten away with it. Ann had been informed of what La Cote Basque 1965 would include even before it was published. She did not respond well to the controversy which she knew the publication of the chapters would arouse. Already suffering from depression for many years, she decided to take her own life. She was 59 years of age at the time. Ann's mother-in-law said of her death, "She shot my son, and Truman just murdered her. And so now, I suppose, we don't have to worry about that anymore." Her body was discovered on the 10th of October 1975, but the exact time of death is unclear. Her death, combined with his slandering of many of the Swans and the revelation of their secrets saw Capote become a social exile in New York for a time, and his life spiraled from there. Already a heavy drinker and drug user, he died in 1984 from liver failure and intoxication. Answered Prayers was only published in full book form posthumously in 1986. A history of depression plagued Anne's family. Her younger son James took his own life in 1978, 3 years after his mother, as did her older son William III much later, in 1999. Her story, and the manner in which Capote's career was upended by the revelations made in the chapters of Answered Prayers published in 1975, was fictionalized in the 2024 series Feud, Capote vs. the Swans. The available evidence suggests that the shooting of the century was an accident, just as Anne maintained. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video on Ann Woodward. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know what you thought of her life down below in the comments, and if you have any suggestions, also let me know down below in the comments. I hope you guys are subscribed and have notifications turned on to get all my videos as soon as I upload them. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks.